take care of the children if I need a day.
But how's that equal if he's working?
Because I could work as well. There's so many different ways.
So this brings us back to the original question then. Is your time better spent working, or is your time better spent at home with your children, not outsourcing their care to somebody else while you're working? So for instance, let's say you had a baby, little Samantha.
Hold on. You stated something about, well, men, they wouldn't be these stay-at-home fathers. Well, that's amazing.
I didn't say that.
You said something about...
I didn't.
Then restate it for me.
I'm saying... When you consider the fact that even if you look in the court of law, even when the mother is the unfit parent, the court of law in a divorce case will always favor the woman getting custody.
Sounds like a female privilege, doesn't it?
I mean, if having to deal with kids, 3 screaming children on your own is a privilege to you, maybe. But I think that aspect of female privilege was created by
if there's
the patriarchy.
If there's a custody dispute, somebody's desirous of having custody.
Sure.
So let's assume that it's the man who's desiring custody and the woman doesn't want it. That wouldn't be a male privilege that he doesn't get custody.
Why do you think I'm saying male privilege or female privilege? I'm saying objectively in the court of law they favor women, and that's a negative a lot of the time for men who want to participate in parenting. I think women are looked at as mothers in society, and that's not necessarily always true and not necessarily always fair.
And men are looked at as wallets. And providers and disposable.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry that's been your experience. I'm not saying one is worse than the other or one's untrue.
But you said something, I'm trying to get back to the original point. You said something about single stay-at-home fathers.
Yeah.
What was your argument?
I was just stating that there are less stay-at-home fathers, as well as the failure of our career system that does not allow a lot of men to take.
That's because of a mating pressure that women put on men, not because there's that's entirely a mating pressure that women impose on men. We went around this table. All of you said the guy has to make this much money. He has to pay for the first date, blah, blah, blah. That's a mating pressure you impose.
I mean, I've dated people from multiple different... I think it's difficult to argue that, this has nothing to do with this. And this is the only reason that this is aligned. And this is the only problem. Like, none of us are arguing that men don't have problems in dating. I'm not saying that it's ethical that men are expected to be providers, but when you create a system in which there is a historical aspect where women were meant to provide children and essentially sex to men, a man provides his own service. That is his service of taking care of his family.
That system, what's wrong with that system? That's a good system. We need women to provide children. Nobody else can provide children except women.
We're in overpopulation.
Actually,
already.
We're not. We are approaching population decline
rapidly
around the globe.
We're in decline across the board. Not only are we in decline across the board, but if you look at some of the Asian nations like South Korea, for instance, it's not even 1-to-1 for replacement. If you look at Japan, right now, they're about to have a crisis where they have more elderly people than they have young people to take care of the elderly people.
The 50 most powerful countries in the world actually cannot replace their current population.
So my question becomes this to you, right? My question becomes, why is this a bad system? Why do you think that it's bad that women are moved by society to stay at home and take care of their children? Why do you think that that's bad? That seems to be the most efficient system. Could you even think of a better system? Tell me, if you could come up with your dream system, what would it even be other than that?
My dream system, I can't wait to have children. I love children. Personally, it's never been a question for me. I can't wait to have children. I love children. I work with kids a bunch, and I think it's such a great blessing, motherhood. Not that everyone needs it, but for me personally. So I'm not at all anti-children, but I'm just I personally would love to have a family and have that dynamic.
So you actually can't think of a better system than that?
In my ideal world, I would love to have a partner who would go true 50-50 with me on caring for the children, as well as working as much as I work. Obviously,
if he's working, if you had the ideal system, wouldn't your ideal system actually be that you could spend all of your time with your children while your husband worked?
Because I would like equal sacrifice in my relationship where I love children. I can't wait to be a mother, but I don't need to be the sole provider of my children for 24 hours a day. I would love to have a partnership where they are more than willing to help me, feed, take care of the children if I need a day.
But how's that equal if he's working?
Because I could work as well. There's so many different ways.
Yeah, I know, so this brings us back to the original question then. Is your time better spent working, or is your time better spent at home with your children, not outsourcing their care to somebody else while you're working? For instance, let's say you had a baby, little Samantha. Do you think that little Samantha wants to go and get taken care of by some Venezuelan immigrant while you go work all day? Do you think that's preferable?
I had an au pair growing up. She was a Haitian au pair, and she was one of the most beautiful, amazing women, and I never felt like it took away from my experience with my mother.
You preferred that over your mom?
I never felt like it took away from my experience with my mother.
That's not what I asked you. Did you prefer it over your own mother?
Probably.
Really? You preferred that this
my mother? Not every woman is a great
mother.
Not every woman can be a great mother. Not every man can be a great father. And I think the family system.
So outsource your kids.
You don't have to.
That's your big plan.
If I am in a position in which I can adjust work hours or take time off of work or make sure my schedule aligns, or take off work until my children are in school and only work during school hours, etc. I find that to be not a problem at all.
Andrew, can you center?
I understand what you're saying, but let me give it back to you one more time. Why do you think it would be preferable if you had the option to stay at home to outsource your mothering to a stranger of your children? In what world does that make sense?
I'm not saying that I would have to do it to a stranger of my children. Everyone has different relationship dynamics, different financial statuses. Maybe I have my parents are able to help take care, or my sister, which is a very natural part of human.
Or maybe nobody. Or maybe the daycare, right? Don't you think it's preferable for women
I would never say
to avoid the daycare?
If you want to ask the question and you want my answer, do you want me to answer?
Well, your answers are really long-winded.
Okay, fine. I will do short and sweet. Good. I want to love my children in every way that I can, and I want to be an amazing mother. And I think if I spend my entire time losing my identity as an individual and only seeing myself as a mother, I will not be able to provide.
What do you mean only? Wait, what could possibly be more important than being a mother? There's nothing you could ever do in your life that's more important.
So for a man, it's more important for him to be a father. Name one thing you could do that's more important than being a mother. God, being a good one.
That makes no sense.
That makes so
much sense.
Yeah.
What? That makes complete sense.
Also, I might be misunderstanding the conversation, but also...
Wait, hang on. I just want to make sure I got this right. What's more important than being a mother? Okay, being a good mother. Okay, great. What's more important than being a good mother?
Nothing.
Nothing. Being a good mother,
I will take every step in my life to assure that I can be a good mother, whether that's working, whether that's maybe
by
needing
outsourcing
a nanny.
it to the Venezuelan immigrant. Yeah, your daycare.
What's wrong with a Venezuelan immigrant? Maybe she lives at home with me and she's an amazing woman.
I mean, do you consider yourself, is his name Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, do you consider yourself like a traditional person? Like, would you say that a traditional mindset?
No, I don't consider myself trad or what is considered to be trad in modernity at all. I never have. I don't think we should go back to the 1950s or any of this nonsense. What I'm saying specifically, though, is this, that there is no better system that any of you can name than the nuclear family for the backbone of society. That's going to require stay-at-home mothers. There's nothing else that's better than that. We see the population declining. It's falling off like a rock. And so when I ask, what is it that's more important than being a good mother at home, none of you are going to be able to say that that's not the most important job. And yet, for some reason, women seem to want to outsource that job to other people, even though it's theirs. Husband can work, take care of you, you stay home. No, I have aspiring dreams that surmount being a mother when there's nothing else you could do that's more important than that.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ideal dynamic would be subjective to the two people in that dynamic. And
Andrew, can you try to center yourself? Go ahead.
I think it's silly to try and tell other people in these relationships what to do because it's not your relationship. You don't know what's best for them. We don't know what's best in your relationship, Andrew. We shouldn't.
We're not saying what. Listen, I'm not talking on the individual level. Everybody's individual situation is going to be different. Nobody disputes that that's true. But we can look at what is optimal.
So
and if we're looking at what is optimal for the most amount of people, what's optimal for the most amount of people is having a stay-at-home mom who takes care of their children and a father who works. How do we know that that's optimal? Because we can look at the results of the kids and what happens with the kids when they come from single mother households, when they come from split family households. We can see exactly what happens, and it is not preferable to society in any way, shape, or form.
Let's say it's optimal and best for the child, for the parents to have a dynamic that works best for them, where they can healthily show up for their kid the best way they can, whether it or not it be like a woman in the household taking care of the children or a father in the household taking care of the children. It doesn't really matter. Like, what works best for them is what works best for them.
Yeah, you could in some certain circumstances flip the script. That's true.
And it's like personally
but these would be exceptions to the rule.
It's a personal preference.
So for instance, it's going to be optimal for a mom to stay at home over a dad, at least in the formative years of the child, right? She has to breastfeed. She has to do all of these things which are necessary for the health and the welfare of the child. So it's an optimal system.
$200. Question for first girl. How often do you advocate for male-only scholarships, fostering male educational environment, etc.? Why are feminists not pushing for graduation parity now? I never hear it now.
Isn't it the case? What is the disparity? It's like 2 to 3? 3 to 2? Like 60% of women are going to college versus 40%. Like it's 60-40, I think, is the split. You go to UCSB, correct?
Correct.
I think it's 60-40 at UCSB. What do you have to say about that? Is that due to sexism?
I think that is really terrible, and that everyone should have.
Do you?
Yeah, I think everyone should have full access and opportunity for education. Absolutely every person on this planet, whether or not I agree with them, whether they have different political views than me, any gender, race, everyone has the right to education, and our entire American education system is flawed. It's super expensive. There's a lot of pressure to get straight into the workforce. I think as we're talking about these different nuclear family dynamics, there is extra pressure on men to get straight into the workforce, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that
well, I don't know who's going to run all the infrastructure in society if we don't get young men out there in the workforce building all the infrastructure in society, because women aren't doing that. Men are doing that.
I think there's like a really big phenomenon happening today too, where there are a lot of depressed men that aren't really, it's not really being talked about.
Absolutely.
So I think that could also be a driving factor to the gender disparity of people attending college and universities.
Let me get a couple chats here. Pilvia Slath was absolutely shocked to see Luce. How do you say your name? Sorry, Luce. When I hopped in tonight, I love your poetry. Anyways, big fan of the podcast, Brian. Let's have a clean show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Good stuff, Luce. JJ.
Oh, thanks, JJ.
Someone said something nice to you. There you have it. We have the Nordic Catholic. For the ladies, what do you think of men in the nursing field, and is it okay for a man to be a nurse?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a great career.
Of course.
It's actually more competitive to get into nursing school
Grid
than
1
med school
Motorsports
right now.
donated $200. Andrew is right, you should listen. If each of you were to die tomorrow and come back as a baby, would you rather have a nanny raise you, a daycare, or your loving mother? Feel free to
Quick
go
answers.
round.
Well, according to her, she thought it was better to be raised by somebody other than her mother. That's what she said
I had
already.
a mother who was not a good mother, personally. And my dad is an amazing person. My stepmom's an amazing person. So I think all family dynamics are different.
I agree. It's also subjective.
Don't you think maybe one of the reasons your mom wasn't such a great mom is because she outsourced how you were raised to a stranger?
No, I don't. Thank God she did, because I don't think I'd be here.
Word.
As I was saying, I agree it's subjective. If a mother is unfit, I would prefer a nanny.
I love my mom.
I would also love a loving mother to raise me, but also not all mothers are good mothers, like she's saying.
Private chat, Nick, pull that shit up.
Loving mother.
Yeah, my mom.
As a professional nanny, I have seen that the parents are more important, and it probably does damage some of the kids because they become more attached to me than to their parents, and I feel like that's definitely going to give them abandonment problems when they're older. I majored in psychology, and I think that some of the kids I have watched became more attached to me than to their mother, which was very sad, especially when I'm only there for a year or two, and I mainly watched infants, so they are very attached to me instead of their parents, and their parents are good parents, but they're not around their child as much as I'm around their child.
No. There's so many bad mothers that we have to outsource all of the children to nannies and other people because mothers are apparently psychopaths who don't love their children enough.
What if
that
the
only
parents...
sounds moderately insane to me. I don't think it's true at all. but just my 2 cents.
Well, it's real. What if the parents have mental illness?
Yeah,
they can't be there for the
look at the
kid.
exceptions to all the rules and then make policy for society based on exceptions.
But those exist.
And a lot of mothers go through
Yeah, and
postpartum
that's
and are at
fine. They
risk
can
of harming
exist,
their
and yes,
own
maybe in
child.
those suboptimal situations, you can, have somebody come in order to regulate the child being raised. But in most situations, that is not the case, and there's nobody who's going to be better for the health and welfare of your children than you. Nobody's ever going to love them more than you.
Can I just ask again for clarification? Every single hand went up around the table when you said you wanted to get married, theoretically, someday. Who is looking forward to being a mom around the table or wants kids in some capacity?
High, please. Put them high.
That's fascinating to me. All but 2 in a society where we have the lowest birth rate ever. We literally can't even replace our own population. And I think it's unquestionable to say that feminism is really steering women away from wanting to have children today. They're looked at as a burden to your career, your personal life. Heck, even climate change is now a reason not to have kids because it's destroying the planet, as we hear from a lot of politicians currently in Washington. So, that is wild to me. At the same time, knowing that you guys want to get married and that you want to have children, how many of you would consider yourselves to be modern feminists?
Starting with you.
Who would call yourself a feminist?
I've never thought about it.
You don't
Really?
consider yourself a feminist?
I really don't like restricting myself to any form of label.
Okay.
You don't like labels.
What is the actual definition of a feminist?
Well, I don't know that we
Modern
have a
feminist?
definition today, to be honest with you. I think feminism
Yeah, I can give you a
means-
good definition for feminism, if you'd
Awesome.
like one.
For today, let's hear
Yeah.
yours, Andrew.
Yeah, so this would be the belief in an egalitarian structure where men and women are both equal in nature and equal in equity and equal under the law.
I would
Okay.
question if that's really the definition of feminism for most modern feminists.
Oh, no,
today.
no. That is the best definition that I can give that the most amount of feminists would agree with.
Well,
and I'm
that's
willing to
interesting.
grant them the nicest definition that I can come up with to show them how bad it still is, even if I did.
That's your most charitable
It's my
definition.
most charitable
All right.
definition.
That's
the
a
nicest,
good clarification.
most charitable way that I could possibly do it.
If that's the definition, I would say I prefer justice over equality. I like to look at things more subjectively. Everyone's going to have a different experience or have different struggles or strengths, and I think subjectivity is more important than a label. I agree.
When you
So-
talk, just a quick follow-up, if you don't mind, very quickly. When you say justice, can you tell us what justice is?
So let's say you are at a baseball game. This is an old, really, really old Facebook post. And you are watching over the stand. A man can watch over the stand. He's tall enough. A woman needs a stool and a child needs 2.
That's equity, though. What makes that justice?
I would say more so that's justice.
Okay, so what makes it just?
So you are looking at something more subjectively.
So
Correct.
it's a subjective metric for
It's
justice.
subjective. And
Yeah, so is
you
all
are
justice
applying-
subjective?
You are applying what the person specifically needs. I'm not really sure I understand what you're asking.
Yeah, so
or-
let me explain. When I ask you what justice is, right? It's a hard question. I don't blame you for not knowing off the top of your head. I'm asking what you're grounding justice on. What is the grounding foundation for what you consider justice to be?
For me and how I look at things, like I said previously, I think it's subjective. What a person needs is what we should strive to give them, whether it be in a family dynamic, a child with disabilities, etc.
Yeah, but that's not a grounding foundation for why we should do that. It's just your belief that we should.
Why we should do that?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's because it'll bring a sense of community. We care and love about each other.
So outcomes.
Sorry?
So it's outcomes based. Basically, you're looking at outcomes, and you're saying that if we're a just society under what you consider just to be, the outcomes are going to be better for society.
I'm not sure I'm following correctly.
If I ask you, so I'll try to make this as, really crystal clear. If I'm asking you what is justice, and you give an example, and I ask you, but why should we do it? You say because it makes for a better society. Then
Okay.
wouldn't you really be basing justice on outcomes?
So I suppose so. Like, for an example, for justice, let's say somebody like robs a store and harms an innocent shopkeeper. They should be arrested and prosecuted, but we shouldn't be arresting everyone and prosecuting them for robbing a store.
Yeah, but why shouldn't we arrest them, take them out, and put them in front of a firing squad immediately? Why would that be unjust?
Then you like dive into the philosophy of morality at that point.
Yeah, well,
So,
that's
like,
what justice is.
morals
Justice
also
is the
subjective.
philosophy of morality, right?
Yes. So, like, from my personal standpoint, it would be my own values and morality of why I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's everyone's opinion. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, so it's a subjective metric based on your subjective interpretation of what justice ought to be.
Sure.
Okay,
So
thank you.
wouldn't consider yourself a feminist necessarily. Wouldn't consider yourself a feminist
I would
necessarily.
consider myself a
You
feminist.
would. Okay.
Yeah.
I think based off of like that specific definition of just wanting
I don't even think we have to tie it to that
equality.
definition, but just what modern feminism has looked like
I-
for our generation.
I think that men and women should just be treated equally and have, you know, of course there's discrepancies, gender discrepancies. I won't act like
Do you
there
think they're
aren't
not?
differences. I think in some worlds they're not.
Living underscore donated $200.
Aspects.
Notice how when men are at a clear societal disadvantage it's called depression or everyone should have equal access. Sounds like all lives matter to me. Why is it not sexism in your eyes?
I'm not going to deny that in like social terms there are a lot of things happening to men right now, but I'm not going to deny that there are a lot of things happening to women. I do think it's unfair that a man can have his reputation ruined just by pissing off some girl. Like, I've seen it happen, but I don't think it's all that common, and I think a lot of women that have had talked about bad experiences with men are usually not believed.
Well, there's an easy way actually for us to determine at the table who's a feminist and who is not. If you don't want to go with the definition, I'll just ask a single question. Do you guys believe that being a stay-at-home mom holds women back?
It's a great question.
No.
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 Sometimes.
Oh, some.
Okay.
Just really quick, around the
No.
table, please.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay, are you a feminist?
No.
I don't know.